the nitty-gritty side of podcasting, the conversations that usually happen when the red light stops. It's time to have these conversations out loud. In this introductory season of Just Podcasting, I've curated a diverse group of podcasters, from those just starting out to the well-seasoned pros. We'll be exploring the true cost of podcasting well beyond just the numbers. Welcome to Just Podcasting. Real stories, real podcasters, for real life. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Just Podcasting. I'm your host, Carrie Caulfield Eric. In this episode, we'll be talking to true crime podcaster Jerri Williams. Her podcast is called FBI Retired Case File Review. Before I jump into that, I just have a couple of bits of housekeeping to do. If you don't know, I will be having a session at Podcast Movement 2019 in Orlando, Florida, and I will be talking about how to make your podcast editing process faster and more efficient by knowing what to cut, what to keep, and what to do when people breathe. The name of the session is People Breathe, the Art of Editing a Podcast Interview. And to add to that list of places you will find me and things I will be doing, I will also be on two panels, not one, but two panels at She Podcast Live in October in lovely Atlanta, Georgia. One panel will be all about editing and the other will be about female empowerment in podcasting specifically. I'll be on the panel with some extraordinary women, and I am truly humbled to have been chosen. So if you want to know more about either of those conferences and come see me in my session or panels, you can go to podcastmovement.com or shepodcastlive.com or go to both. Come to both. Have a great time with us. Also, if you are a female podcast editor and you are not a member of Justbusters Facebook group, then you can go to facebook.com/Justbusters and become a member. We will be having a meetup at both conferences at Podcast Movement and She Podcast Live. So stay tuned for details about that meetup. So as I said, we are talking to Jerri Williams today. I had a great time. We have kind of known each other. We were in Elsie Escobar's E-League together, and I am also a listener of her podcast, and my husband subscribed to her podcast, and we talk about that in this episode about getting our families to actually engage with our own podcasts, which is a common theme in this whole series of Just Podcasting, which is, I think, kind of funny that our families are like, okay, you have a podcast, great. But anyway, Jerri is a true crime podcaster, as I said, but she comes into true crime after being an FBI agent for 26 years. And we talk about how she transitioned from FBI to podcaster and how she's talking to other FBI agents and the difficulty they have with technology, which I think is kind of funny, but also a real problem that podcasters may actually address. So she goes through the steps of how she gets them to come on her show and be interviewed. She also talks about something that does happen in certain industries and careers, getting clearance to air a specific episode of a podcast on a specific topic. Now with the FBI, it sounds like she needs to get clearance for every episode, and that presents another unique challenge for her. So that's something to think about. Jerri also talks about something that is near and dear to my heart, and that's being kind of an older podcaster. Our bodies aren't what they used to be. So we talk about the physical health impact of creating a podcast that has on our bodies. And one more thing, Jerri is an author. She has now, I think, 3 books out. Her most recent one, you can find the link to in the show notes for this episode. It is based largely on her podcast, and it is called FBI Myths and Misconceptions, a manual for armchair detectives. Now, I'm ordering my copy today, and I hope you order your copy today as well. I could tell you all about this interview, but let's go ahead and jump into the episode. Welcome, Jerri. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Carrie, for inviting me.
I want to talk about what your life looked like shortly before podcasting. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Now, I am a retired FBI agent, but for 7 years, I worked as the Director of Media Relations for Philadelphia's transportation system, SEPTA. So it was an extremely busy life because media relations is 24/7. I get called in the middle of the night because, a bus ran over a pedestrian or, there was a fight on the system. So it was very, very busy, very, very hectic. And one day I thought to myself, I don't need this.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was very interested in, as a matter of fact, I had a literary agent at the time with a book that was being shopped around. And I just thought, that's really what I want to do now at this stage in my life. And I love this job, but it's way, way too much for me. I was working too hard. And I thought to myself, that's it. I'm quitting. And I actually put it out that way in the media because I had a lot of friends in the media. And, there are a lot of articles that were out that week where it says that I quit.
It's just, that's it. I quit. Yeah.
It actually said quitting my release that I sent out to everyone said quitting the day job. And that's what I did because I had always wanted to do creative adventures, which in my job as an FBI agent and as a media director, I had been able to do for an organization. And now I wanted to be able to devote that time to, my own personal goals of being an author. And so I thought, I'm quitting the day job and I am going to devote myself fully to, being creative.
And you started that creative journey as an author, right?
Yes.
So how did that translate into a podcast?
Well, the book was coming out in September. I quit my job the preceding year. And they always tell you that before a book comes out that you want to build a platform, you want to build an audience. And so that was going to give me more than 10 months to get everybody ready for the release of my first novel. And I was trying to figure out how to build that platform. A lot of people were blogging at the time, but I was actually, listening to a few podcasts. And because I had been a spokesperson for, at that point, 12 years, because I did it for 5 years with the FBI and 7 years with SEPTA, I knew how to talk, in a microphone. And I thought, I think I'll do a podcast. And so I thought about it at the end of November when I quit my job. And by January, I was up and running.
So how did you come up with the concepts for your podcast then, essentially?
Yeah, I'm a member of the Society of Former Special Agents of the FBI. So it's really an organization for retired agents. And I was sitting at our holiday luncheon and talking to people and, everybody's telling their old war stories. And I was remembering cases that the different agents had that, worked in the Philadelphia division with me. And I thought to myself, what a great concept. There's a lot of true crime podcasts out there, but what a great concept to talk directly to the retired agent who investigated a particular case. And that way you don't just hear about, what happened that you normally would see in the newspaper, all that information that's public, but you also get behind the scenes, what was said, how were people feeling, what were the struggles, what were the challenges. And so I thought to myself, oh, I could do a blog. And then I thought, no, I could do a podcast. It would be so much easier than doing a blog. I take it you hear the sarcasm dripping.
I do, yes.
Okay.
So how long did it take you from realizing, ooh, that's a great idea for a podcast, to actually executing and releasing the podcast?
I'd say 6 weeks.
Really? That's fast.
Yep. So once I decided to do it, then I went to YouTube, and thank God for Pat Flynn, his free YouTube tutorial on how to start a podcast. I also had to do a tutorial on how to build a website, and I used WordPress, and something that they said I could do in a day took me about a week to do. So I got all the infrastructure up. I definitely had a Twitter account because I had that from work, a personal one. I changed it so that it was all FBI focused. And then I also created a Facebook author page. So for 6 weeks, I was just putting together the platform and all the behind the scenes for the podcast. And I did it all from YouTube videos. Joanna Penn, also from the Creative Pen, also had some videos. And so between her and Pat Flynn, I had everything I needed as far as what you needed to have in place before you launched your podcast. I was so used to working hard and working all day long with my other job, because media relations, just because you go home doesn't mean the job's over with. You're called all night long. So I just put my all into getting all of this stuff done within a 6-week period. And I think my first episode was launched like January the 16th or something like that.
Wow. So how many hours were you devoting a day to putting that
all day
together? All day. Okay.
All day. From once I got up in the morning until I went to bed at night, that's what I was doing. You can do that when you're not working for someone else.
Yeah, 6 weeks of intensive podcast things.
Right. Because I wanted it all done. Some people start a podcast and they don't have their website. I wanted it all done. I wanted it all in place.
That's awesome.
So I just devoted my time to doing that.
Yeah. So has your reason for podcasting changed at all?
Yes, in a major way. All right. So I started the podcast to build a platform for people to read my books. That's what I worked on. And the book came out in September of 2016, and everything was beautiful. But just before the book came out is when former FBI Director Comey did his unprecedented press conference, where not only did he announce that a subject, in this case Hillary Clinton, was not going to be prosecuted, but then made some very unflattering comments about that person. There are two big things wrong, were unprecedented about his press conference. And this has nothing to do about politics. I'm very nonpartisan in my podcasting. But the FBI investigates, the U.S. Attorney's Office or the AG's office prosecutes. As a former FBI spokesperson, I know that I would have gotten my head chopped off if I had talked about charges or prosecuting, and that's not the role of the FBI. We investigate, we make our report, and then we give it to the U.S. Attorney's Office, who decides on the prosecutorial merits of the case. So just announcing that someone was not going to be prosecuted was quite odd. And I remember watching the press conference thinking, that's not what we do. And then once you've said that someone is not going to be prosecuted, then to actually make comments, personal negative comments about somebody was just something that the FBI doesn't do. This could have been anyone. I do want to make it clear that my criticism has to go with following standard policies and procedures. That's all that I'm talking about. And so, of course, when that was done, people started to question the FBI's integrity, their independence. It was pretty nasty. I remember the FBI does some Facebook Lives for recruitment. And I remember just watching one of those, And the comments were coming up. Some people were saying, how old do you need to be? What do you need to major in college? And other people were saying, you guys are lying scums. And it was like, what?
Oh, wow.
The negative, nasty comments
Right.
about the FBI. And all of a sudden, my podcast, and by that time, I was maybe 30 or 40 interviews in, it became a mission to show the public who the FBI is and what the FBI does without all of these filters of social media, our news media, our talking heads. This is the FBI, these case agents who come on the show and tell you exactly how they investigate a case and the results of that and the challenges of that. That's who the FBI is, and that's our commitment to serving the American people. And it really did change into, that new mission. And in this year, in 2019, working with, our good friend Elsie Escobar and the E-League, I really decided to double down. And I made a mission statement on my website, and I make that mission statement on every podcast that I'll be doing from now on. Now, just to be clear to people about who I am and what I believe in. And that mission statement, is very basic. It just says that I'm on a mission through my books, blog, and the personal case reviews of my former FBI colleagues to show the public who the FBI is and what the FBI does.
That's really amazing. This has come up a lot in my interviews, is podcasting as a form of service.
Yes. I've always felt that it was kind of like a service or providing to the public, but now I am determined that the podcast has a social impact.
That is amazing. I really commend what you're doing, and we need it.
Yes.
Now more than ever, we need it.
And I will tell you that, I make sure that I stay out of politics and that I'm very nonpartisan. And because of my previous position, both with the FBI as the spokesperson in Philadelphia and for the FBI and for the transportation system, I have a lot of media contacts, and I get calls all the time, CNN, MSNBC, inviting me to, I never get any calls from Fox, but inviting me to come on national news, and I turn it all down because I really believe that my mission stays pure, my mission stays focused if I keep my personal politics out of it, as the FBI should.
Right. That has to take a lot of discipline.
It does. It really does. Because there's some things that are going on that I was like, and again, I'm trying to be as impartial as possible. But when people come on the news to say, for instance, that the FBI ambushed somebody or the FBI got somebody, to talk without talking to an attorney, again, this has nothing to do about politics, but that can't happen. If you have a decent defense attorney, that any testimony that would have been gotten under those circumstances would be suppressed. It would not be allowed to be part of a criminal charge. So I would love to go out and say, no, that's wrong. That's fake news. But instead, I'm going to let the interviews with my fellow retired agents speak for me.
Wow. That is just something incredible, I think. So your interviews with the agents, now how do they feel about podcasting? Are they very familiar with podcasts?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I will be posting my 150th interview next week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've been doing it 3 years, and most years I do, I might take off a week or two. So that's why I'm at 150. And most of the agents have never, ever been on a podcast. I had to explain to them what a podcast is. And because of that, I started out using Skype, as everybody suggests, on those tutorial YouTube.
Right.
But there were so many retired agents, and I've talked to people in their 80s. The Watergate case agent is in his 80s, but I got that interview. So the fact that I had to call him up on his phone and record the phone call by phone, I'm okay with. Now, there may be some listeners who aren't okay with that, but I'm about the content. If I can't get him to download Skype, then so be it. Now, I have found Zoom, and Zoom is a lot easier for me to get some of the retired agents who have no idea, how to use a computer. I'm able to get them to get on Zoom. So the last year's interviews audio quality has been pretty good. But I do have a couple there that are not that great. And I know that, but I was about getting the content. And if that's what I needed to do to get it, then I got it. Many of the retired agents on the show are not familiar with podcasting and the format.
Right. So do they ever listen to their interviews?
Yes, I think most of them do. I think most of them do. And that's because they know that I'm going to take good care of them. I mean, I do unbelievable amount of editing of and just things. I'm a person. So
right.
if you do editing, could you take out half of the
nose? I'm a so...
But I did an interview, a recent one. Matter of fact, it's one of my favorite interviews. And the retired agent said, and almost after every sentence. And I went in and took out 95% of those. It took me about 10 hours.
Wow. Oh, that's a long time.
But I can tell you, it truly is my favorite episode. I got an email this morning from someone saying that the agent was one of the best presenters that that she had ever listened to.
Oh, wow. Congratulations, because that was...
She might not have said that if she had to listen to and
Right. Right. So what episode number is that? Do you know offhand?
The last one I just did, 148 and 149, and is my favorite episode. It's about a case, FBI case, where the informant or the cooperating witness didn't know it. Just the hell that they went through is this 2-part episode, and it's fantastic. And the agent, Bob Herndon, is an excellent presenter. But I think when you're just talking casually, and I love for my interviews, just like this one, if they can turn into conversations, that's when you really get the good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
The flow of the conversations is transparency, where he talks about him and his partner crying, because of something that happened in the case. I have so many episodes like that, just meant so much more because it was always my favorite narrative nonfiction book. I love that book. And to be able to talk to investigate the case, was a dream come true.
Yeah, that sounds like it. So I'll put a link to that episode or those episodes in the show notes for everybody to go listen to.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
They'll enjoy it. They're great.
Yeah. I want to listen now. I don't have a lot of time to listen to podcasts lately. So
oh, good.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your budget. What kind of budget did you start with? And how has that budget changed over time?
Very lean budget. Went out and got a simple microphone.
ATR 2100 maybe?
Yeah, ATR 2100.
Okay.
I was trying to give you what the ATR stood for, but you're right. I'm going to just say ATR 2100.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this microphone. This is like the McDonald's of microphone. Well, I shouldn't say McDonald's.
No, it's really awesome though.
Yeah, it's the Chick-fil-A of microphones. Yes. A little upper scale,
Right.
And I have my trusty laptop. Currently, I'm recording using Zoom, which is okay. There's a little drifting sometimes that I don't like, but I try out Squadcast, but I can't. It's Chrome. And again, using Zoom, laptop, simple microphone, Audacity, and I use Ophonics to level the way I want it. That's it.
That's it. Oh, wait, you host with Libsyn?
Libsyn.
Okay. Has your budget changed over time at all?
My budget has not changed. I really, really would love to farm out the editing.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably just have somebody do just the ums and the and the I don't know if this is against podcast rules, but I do actually move things around sometimes because I might think of a question or the agent brings up something that I realize it would fit much better up in the front, at the introduction. So I couldn't get a an editor to fix that kind of stuff for me. I think I got to fill that out. I mean, I spent hours removing empty spaces or stuttering or things like that. And I would love to be able to do that, but I don't have the budget right now. When I become a best-selling author selling, thousands and thousands of books, then I'll probably hire an editor.
You've talked about how long editing takes you. When you first started, did you realize that was going to be such a big piece of the process?
No, not at all. I really want to present the agents in the best light possible. And I really want people to listen to the case review and the story. And I know how much, it's my own personal biases. I know how much I'm distracted by and, things like that. And so I take them out. If I'm listening to a podcast and there's a lot of, mouth sounds.
Yes.
It irritates me.
I can't deal with it.
I know. And so I'm almost obsessed in taking out those mouth sounds and the ums. And, once you start going down that road, it gets a little crazy. And it got so bad that sitting here for hours doing that editing caused me to get tendinitis in my arm and my shoulder to a point, I'm not exaggerating, I couldn't lift my arms. One day it was so bad overnight. I slept sitting up for 3 nights in a row. And then I thought, this is so bad that my husband took me to urgent care. I couldn't even I didn't have enough time to make an appointment with a doctor. I went to urgent care because the pain was so intense. And it all came because I wanted to take 2 weeks off for the holidays. And so what I did is I started getting ahead of myself so that I could have, stuff to post, but I wouldn't have to do any work during those 2 weeks. Plus, I'm writing my 3rd book, and I'm trying to get that done. So even when I wasn't editing, because I only edit on Mondays, on the other days, I'm sitting here writing my next book. And I ruined my body. I'm a very fit person. I take boot camp and kickboxing, and it got to a point where I couldn't even go to the gym. It was so bad.
So how did you correct that?
Well, I already had a Veridesk, the standing desk. I bought one maybe 2 years ago, and occasionally I would use it. I am sitting down now. I was standing up, but I raised it back down, and I'm sitting down right now because I don't need to lean over. So it's fine to sit to do this. But most of the time now I'm standing, which is really funny because now I'm getting this little tinge of pain in my right hip.
You can't win, can you?
No. I'm going to be 62 in March, so I'll be an official senior citizen in March. And I think my body's falling apart.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, for me, I have to, because podcast editing is actually my job. So I can spend an insane amount of time sitting down in front of the computer, but I actually have bad knees, and my physical therapist told me to get up every hour and just move around. So that's what I do. And if I don't listen to him, then my knees hurt.
Wow.
Yeah.
So people would not understand that podcasting could take such a physical toll on your body, but it really does.
It does. It does. Absolutely. Yeah. And you can spend 10, 12 hours editing one episode.
Yep.
Yeah. So were there any other pieces that take you a very long time besides the editing?
Whenever I have an episode that's a 2-parter, that usually means that I was on the phone or on Zoom or wherever talking to that person for anywhere from 3 to 5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
wow.
There was one, it was a fantastic interview. Of course, I say that about all of them, but this is with Juan Jackson, and he was an FBI agent who went undercover as a drug dealer in a case of police corruption in New Orleans.
Wow.
I talked to him for 5 hours. Now, it's not the best audio. I don't think it's terrible or horrible, but it's not the best audio because he was out of town and he could only use his phone because the Wi-Fi in the hotel room. And so we spoke on the phone, but I talked to him for 5 hours. And now I thought, well, I don't want to do a 3-part episode. It's a great case, but I don't think anything deserves 3 parts because my interviews, I let them go an hour and a half. So 2 episodes at an hour and a half, that's 3 hours. I have to edit that 5-hour interview down to 3 hours. That was probably like a 2-day project.
Wow.
It's great to hear him talk about officers from the New Orleans Police Department who are on tape saying that they're going to kill him. He's a drug dealer, that they have been helping him with his shipments, protect his drug shipments, and now they don't want to do it anymore. So the best way to not do it anymore is to kill him.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
That's the kind of interview that is. So, yeah.
That deserves a lot of attention. I mean, a lot of, like, there's a crafting process to put that together, I'm sure.
Yes. And that was one where I did move things around because, you can imagine in a 5-hour conversation, he'll say like, oh, you know what I forgot to tell you?
Oh, yeah.
This happened. And it's like, yeah, you did forget. Now I got to take that and move it to where you should have told me about it. But, it sounds like I'm kind of complaining, but it's no different than people who do those wonderful story scripted episodes where they have the music and all of that coming in. I love those. Really feel like you're taken away to another place. I love that. And that's even though mine are interview based, that's why I edit out my voice, my question a lot of times. So you hear the person talking, you don't realize I had asked him that question. I edit that out because I like it where you can just get into the person's mindset as they are telling you the story of this true crime investigation. I really like those types of podcasts.
I do too. I fall asleep. My husband makes fun of me because I fall asleep to like forensic files and
every night.
Right.
Every night. My husband looks at me like I'm a nut because every night I go to bed with my earphones on, my noise canceling Bose earphones. Every night I'm listening to a podcast because I don't want to take up my time during the day that I'm supposed to be podcasting or writing to listen to podcasts. I only listen in the car when I'm exercising, and at night always get a nice bedtime story.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that people don't realize about podcasting is that if you come into it because you love listening to podcasts, it's going to be more difficult to actually keep up on those podcasts after you start podcasting.
That is so true. Listen to a podcast during the day with your own podcast.
Right. It's like a part-time or full-time job. Are there any pieces of podcasting that overwhelm you or make you think, ugh, I don't want to do that?
Getting guests.
Really?
Yes. Now, I know that no one... this is not a challenge. Don't anybody hear me say this and think it's a challenge, but I doubt seriously if anybody could do my type of podcast, just where they interview retired agents, find the people. I have a directory of the Society of Former Special Agents of the FBI. I get the monthly magazine, where I can go through and see what cases people might be presenting at different chapter meetings and then go through the directory and reach out to them. Or as I talk to different agents, ask them, who they recommend. But even so, I can send out, and this is one of those weekends where I will send out probably 25 to 30 emails to different agents, and I may actually hear back from a third of them, and then maybe out of the total 30 people, I might get 7 or 8 that say yes. So it's a lot of work.
Wow. Yeah. 30 people is a lot.
I just copy and paste, and I have my list that I've collected over the last couple of months, and then I just go for it and just do a marathon session, and I'll do that on Sunday and just send out 30 emails, with a nice pitch letter, who I am and what I do, and the different agents that have already been on the show. I've had assistant directors and special agent in charge, which may not impress a lot of agents, but I've also had people that they are very impressed with, like Joe Pistone from Donnie Brass and a number of other agents. And so I just sent out my pitch letter, explain what a podcast is, what I've done, that I've been doing this for 3 years, that I have a mission. And some people, I don't know why, I just never hear back from them. I don't even get, an acknowledgement of the email. And then some people let me know that not doing that. They're not interested anymore. Some people tell me they don't have a case that they can talk about for an hour.
Okay.
Most of the agents I talk to that have really great episodes are those that still speak after they've retired about a particular case in front of groups. So the guy that I did the interview with about the informant, he goes out on a regular basis and talks about that case. And I did the case agent who did the Jordan Belfont. So if I have somebody who's ever done about a case, looked at that presentation in 20 years, I just tell them that old PowerPoint off your computer, and they're excellent interviews because, they've got a flow and all the details are there. And I back it up with news and, videos from documentaries about the particular case. I really look at this as crime podcast.
So it's the guest piece that is really just time consuming. How does your family feel about you being a podcaster?
Well, I think my husband would be one of those people who say, "What's a podcast?" I'm serious. I think once when we were on a flight, we were traveling someplace, I pulled up the Joe Pistone, Donnie Brasco episode because he likes the stories about the mob because we live right outside of Philadelphia. And I handed him my earphones for the rest of the fluff. And he said, "I'm bored. I don't think podcasts are for me." It was like, ouch.
He's brave.
Ouch. Oh, no, he's just brutally honest. He's one of those kind of husbands that say, "No, those pants don't make you look too fat." It's like,
Oh, boy.
I'm used to him. Coach, he's a basketball coach.
Okay, yeah.
I'm used to that kind of honesty.
Right.
But anyway, my son has listened to interview with an agent who interviewed Jeffrey Dahmer 4 times. I know he's listened to that one and some of the other ones about serial killers. So thank God for serial killers so that someone in my family is interested in what I'm doing. But I don't have a good fan base here in my own house.
No. Do they ever complain that podcasting takes up too much of your time?
Absolutely. I mean, like right now I'm in my home office, which is a really lovely little office I put together here with the door shut. And, my kids are older. My one daughter lives at home. She's going to be 28 and she'll get off of work and then have someplace to go. And right now she's probably in between jobs because she's also an assistant basketball coach on my husband's high school team. And she'll be so pissed off because she would like to tell me something between the time she got off of her first job, as a personal trainer at a fitness center, and when she has to go to the assistant coach. But she can't interrupt me. My door is shut. And so she's actually, pretty pissed off that she can't access mom. And the other one has called me twice since we've been on the phone. So, yeah, it's really just inconvenient for their lifestyle that, I'm a podcaster, Very inconvenient for them. Same thing for my husband. Luckily, because during the summer, he was just the time that I devote to podcasting all day long. It's just irritating to him. But once school starts, he does the same thing when it comes to, coaching his high school team. So then he doesn't bother me anymore.
Okay.
I'm okay during basketball season.
Right. My son often complains that I spend too much time working on my computer, but it's really funny because he only says that when he's not doing anything else. So I feel like mom problems. I think that is.
So I know it can be irritating for my family, the amount of time that I'm devoting to podcasting and writing, because I spend a lot of time, an equal amount of time working on my books. I know it can be irritating for them, but they're used to it because I spent the same amount of time. I had the same focus when I was a special agent with the FBI working economic crime cases and when I was the spokesperson and director for the public transportation system in Philadelphia. That's who I am. I like working. I love my family. I don't want it to sound like I'm ignoring my family, but, when I'm in that work mindset, then, I hate to say it, but I'm in heaven.
Yeah, I understand that. completely. I do have to remember to have conversations with my family sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just to take a break, check in with them. It's kind of terrible, but
But then they always want something, you know?
I know. Yeah, they do.
Either clean or cook or wash something.
Yes. I know, right? I'm very lucky.
What do I look like?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I'm joking too. This is terrible, but I'm going to give you a confession. I don't clean, I don't cook, and I don't wash.
Oh.
My husband, the high school basketball coach, does it all.
That's amazing. Yeah, my husband is like a house husband. Like he stays at home and takes care of everything.
Well, I think we got into that rhythm because he's retired now, but he was a high school teacher. And so even when my kids were small, he was home in time to meet them when they got off the bus because high school gets out before elementary school. And so he was always home to get them off the bus and to take them to their games and to get dinner. He was not going to wait for me to get home to get dinner because, you know, even when I left work, say around 6, you know, they have rush hour traffic because I live in New Jersey, in South Jersey, and I was working in Philadelphia. So by the time I got home, you know, at 7 or after 7, you know, he was starving. So he was like, you know, we're going to eat. We're not waiting for you. So it just got into the mindset that he was doing those things because I was working longer hours than he did. And then he retired before I did. And so he was home all day and he took on more duties. So when I quit my job, I said to him, you know, we will share these duties. You'll do the ones that you want to do, and then I'll hire somebody to do the ones. I had been doing it for years, and he didn't like that. He didn't. I don't want some stranger, even though we've had, you know, people have hired housekeeping people to come in before when we were both working and had to do it. But he just doesn't want anybody coming in to clean our bathrooms and clean our kitchen and vacuum. And I said, well, then that's what I want. I want my part to be done by somebody else. So if you don't want somebody coming in, then you're welcome to it.
Right.
But he's still doing it all.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, you're lucky.
I am lucky. And that makes it so okay that he doesn't want to listen to my podcast or read my books. He's read the book either. That's okay. As long as he's still getting the clothes washed and cleaning the bathrooms, you know, it's a good trade-off.
Right. Yeah. I definitely say that is.
Yep.
Oh. So are there any other ways that you keep balance, or it's just not a thing to you?
No, balance is not a thing to me. When you do what is a payoff for you. So when people talk about balance, you're doing what you want in life because it works for you. And if things are out of whack, it's because you're getting a payoff from doing the things that you're doing. And I'm really enjoying podcasting. I'm really enjoying, you know, writing books. Can I tell you about the book that I'm working on now? Because it's a good combination. Well, I am actually writing a book that incorporates my podcast.
Really?
Yes. I'm so excited about it. It's the best time I've had in writing and podcasting because I'm combining it. But the book is called FBI in Film and Fiction. And through doing the interviews, I've come up with 21 cliches and misconceptions about the FBI that you see in books, TV, and movies, because many of the agents that I've talked to, their cases have been turned into books or TV shows or movies. And so we'll discuss what writers who write book scripts, what they get wrong, what they get right, where they take in creative license. And so I came up with these 21 cliches and misconceptions, and I'm writing a book where I clear up the misconception. I introduce excerpts from the interviews that I've done with people. Like if I'm talking about an undercover, you know, the cliches about going undercover, then I'll have a couple of excerpts from conversations that I've had with agents on the podcast about being an undercover agent. And then I'll introduce movies or books about the FBI that cover that topic too, and talk about whether they got it right or got it wrong. And so it's called FBI in Film and Fiction. I am loving doing this because I get to read books and watch TV shows and movies about the FBI and re-listen to some of my favorite FBI retired case file review interviews. And I'm just incorporating everything. And I think it's going to be well received.
That is a brilliant idea. I love it's like repurposing content.
Yes.
Yeah, but also creating new content out of that is brilliant. And then expanding your audience. Oh, it's all the things.
Yeah, I say that the book, whenever you're doing a project, you're supposed to know who your audience is. And if you say it's for everyone, then it's for no one. Well, my book is for people who read, watch, or write FBI crime dramas, or for someone who might be interested in being a special agent.
That's really cool. Yeah. Well, I say, I think almost everybody loves reading and watching and listening to FBI stuff. So.
There might be a few people.
Yeah, a few people that don't, but yeah. I haven't met very many.
So I'm hoping that it's going to do well. I'm spending lots of time on it. I'm hoping that it's at least available for pre-order. The funny thing is people don't realize that when an FBI agent writes a book, even if it's a crime novel, this one isn't. This is actually nonfiction. We have to write the book and we have to send it in to FBI headquarters to the pre-publication unit. And they read the book and they go through to make sure that we haven't divulged any sensitive matter. And how long it takes to get that approval depends on how busy they are. So I believe after going through, several copy editing and proofreading and beta reading and all of that stuff, that sometime maybe by May or June, it will actually be out on the market. But I should have it available for pre-order around March, even knowing that I have all of that stuff that still needs to be done.
Right. Do you have a link for that we can share with the audience? Because I think there are going to be a lot of true crime kind of lovers.
Yeah, I haven't put it up on my website yet, even though I have divulged the cover on social media. But maybe, I'll just put a nice picture of the cover and a little coming soon. I'll have it up on the website.
Okay, awesome. So we can point people there.
Yes.
So that, having to go through the FBI publishing.
Pre-publication unit.
Pre-publication. Are podcasts even on their radar at all? Or is there anything you have to do special or get any clearance from the FBI with your podcast?
Shh, don't say anything.
Okay, I'll cut that part out.
Yeah, I hope they're not listening. No, I'm just joking. Logically, you would think so, but no. And they absolutely know that I'm doing this. I am currently acting, but I'm the chairperson of our local chapter of the Society of Former Special Agents of the FBI. I am also on the National Information and Communication Committee. I talk to people at headquarters, public affairs, or bases about other things that are going on. Many current agents are listeners, so they know that I'm doing it, and no one has ever said anything to me. So
okay.
I'm one of those people that ask for forgiveness instead of permission. So When it was time to do the podcast, I just did it. Now, my logic behind that is retired agents can talk to reporters, and we've got lots of retired agents who are analysts on TV. You see them every day. Mm-hmm. They're not clearing what they say with headquarters. So I consider myself truly a journalist as podcasters and as an author. I consider myself involved in journalism. So I'm following those same rules and guidelines.
Okay.
That's my story.
Yeah, you're sticking to it, right?
Yeah. Can I tell you one other thing that I'm doing?
Yes, absolutely.
So the other thing that I'm doing that's combining my podcast and my writing is there's a new TV show on CBS called FBI. I don't know if you've watched it, but it comes on Tuesday nights. And since the beginning, I have been doing a blogging about the show, a review of the show, about the episodes. Same thing. I understand that it's impossible to be accurate when you are doing a show about an FBI investigation it has to all be concluded within less than an hour. So there's going to be corners that are cut, and they're going to get things wrong and use a lot of creative license. So what I do, not as a criticism of the show, but after each episode, I'll go in and talk about what happened in the episode and what really would happen in the FBI. And I'll direct people to different podcasts if they want more information. Like if in one show they may show a hostage negotiator, then I'll talk about what they got wrong about the hostage negotiator. Like she negotiated for a minute as opposed to hours and days.
Right. Then
I'll direct the people who are reading the blogcast to a podcast episode or two with hostage negotiator so they can see how it really would be done.
I love that because I'm one of those people who, after watching something, I have to go Google it.
Yes.
See what's right and what's wrong.
I'm one of those people too. Yeah. I do it all the time, or during the middle of the show.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Google and Alexa too.
Yes. Yeah. I'm pretty busy.
Yeah.
2019, like I said, in talking with Elsie Escobar in the E-League, I really, at the end of the year, really wanted to figure out what I wanted for 2019. And for 2019, I really want to focus on the writing and on the podcasting and on my true purpose. So, in the podcasting, having that social impact, making sure I get the word out, not just to build my audience. I mean, that will be definitely a good thing, but to get the word out to as many people as possible that we have these interviews here so that you can really learn about what the FBI does. So I'm focusing on that social impact of reaching more people to listen to the podcast. And then my other aspect is I started this to get readers, to develop readers for my books. I haven't concentrated a lot on that. And I think this third book, where I'm combining my listeners and potential readers, will help push me into that level. So I'm doubling down in 2019. And then after that, I'm hoping that I'll be in a position where I can ease back a little bit. I am supposed to be retired.
I'm starting to think that's not like my idea of retired, and the actuality of retired is much different.
I'll never do that, but I do want to travel more. My husband and I do a lot of trips around the country. We'll pick up and go to Austin or Phoenix or Chicago and Portland. We do those nice little trips where you leave on a Thursday and you come back on a Monday. But then 2 years ago, we went to Spain, and this year in September, we got our 2-week to France all packed up. So I want to start continuing to do more travel. I now have a 6-month-old grandson that lives in Raleigh, so I'll be visiting him more. My son lives in the Seattle area. He's having a baby in May. So it's going to be a packed 2019. But I'm all in. I'm all in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And congratulations on the little ones, by the way.
Thank you.
That's so great. Cute. Yeah. And you get to leave them. You don't
Yes.
You get the best parts of it, right?
And I do. I get all the best parts of it. And then I can go back into my home office and stay in my office locked away for hours on end, and nobody's saying, "Where are you?"
Right.
I need you. Life is good.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a lot of really exciting things coming up. I just love how you've just embraced and been creative with what you're doing. Has podcasting had any kind of negative impact on your life? Besides the tendinitis.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty bad. I think the one thing that I'm not as social. I mean, when I was working in media relations, I was out all the time, going out to lunch and meeting with people. And now across the river here in New Jersey in my home office, I'm not socializing in person. I'm invited to things and it's like, oh, I had to put on clothes. I had to do my hair and put on makeup if I do that. And I find myself turning down social engagements because it's so much more comfortable just to get up and throw on some yoga pants and a baseball cap and work here at your desk. And I do get to talk to people. Look, I'm so lucky, Carrie. I'm talking to you now. But I do know that since I've started podcasting, I need to get out of the house a little bit more and engage with real people face to face.
I totally understand that completely. I feel like you're saying what's in my head. For me, I think the social part has definitely been impacted. And I feel like since I'm talking to people online all the time, that social part has been fulfilled for me.
I have listeners extremely friendly with that I'm always, either tweeting or direct messaging or emailing with that I really feel like I know them.
Right.
That's great too. I mean, I've got a guy in Brussels that I've sent him, he actually collects FBI memorabilia. And, if I find stuff that I really like, it costs a lot to mail stuff, but I'll find stuff to him and he pays for me to ship it to him. I'm sending him all kinds of interesting books and collectibles. And I just do it because, he's such a great guy and a loyal listener. So it's great.
Yeah, but you don't get out of the house much except for to go to the post office.
Yeah, I need to get out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think one of my goals for this year is to work at the local coffee shop a little bit more.
But you're still working.
Yeah, still working, but, just in a different environment.
And you're at a desk with headphones on and nobody wants to approach you because they don't want to bother you. But at least you're out of the house.
Right. Well, I figure I'll take breaks and be social. And my laptop has a bunch of podcasting stickers on the back of it. So maybe it'll strike up some conversations. So I could take the headphones out. I swear I can. They're not attached.
That all sounds great. And I could sit here and say, yeah, I'm going to do that too. But then again, I got to put on clothes and I have to, comb my hair. And it's just so much easier just to walk out of my bedroom, walk into the home office and plop myself down in this chair and just get to work.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's a goal for 2019.
Now, one of the things that I have started doing, signing up for conferences, I was really lucky because Podcast Movement, of course, was in Philly, even though it's a 20-minute drive for me to get to Philly, non-rush hour. I still stayed in a hotel there, and I met a bunch of wonderful people. And I'm going to PodFest in the beginning of March, and I'm having a chance to meet a lot more people. And I've always gone to writers' conferences. I've been to Thriller Fest, which is a conference for people who write thrillers and crime fiction. I've done that maybe 6 or 7 times. I'll be doing that in July. So I am getting out and meeting people, through different conferences, and I really recommend anyone who is, podcasting to come to some of those meetups. It's great.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a big one like Podcast Movement or PodFest. It can be even locally as well, because there are lots of local podcasting groups these days.
And there's a number of podcasters that I've never met in person that I talk to, like mini masterminds. I just had a mini mastermind with the host of Pretend Radio. I've never met Javier in person, but we talk all the time and work on different projects together and just brainstorm. But I've never met him in person, but I definitely consider him a podcasting friend. So, hey, if anybody's out there listening to this and you want a podcasting friend, then email me, hit me up. I'll give you my phone number, and we can mastermind together too.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So would you say that's like a really positive impact podcasting has had on you, is making those connections that maybe you wouldn't have made otherwise?
Definitely. Absolutely. I guess one of the reasons that I said that not getting out of my house is, a little bit of a negative thing, because I am a very social person. I'm an Air Force brat. My father took tours of duties all over the United States and overseas. I've lived in Germany, England, France, Morocco, and then here in the States, Massachusetts, Maine, Washington State, Virginia, Washington, D.C. We've been all over the place. And so I've always been able to make friends easily. And now I'm making friends over the internet,
right?
Over the telephone.
And international friends.
Yes,
too.
I am.
Yeah. Back to your roots, it sounds like.
Yeah. So I really do like that, reaching out and talking to people. I have a lot of people who listen to my podcast, FBI Retired, Case File Review, and they're interested in the FBI. And if they email me and they say, I'd love to ask you a couple of questions. They give me like a list of questions. I just send my phone number and say, look, I'm not going to sit here and type out all the answers to these questions. Why don't you give me a call and we have a nice conversation and I try to answer all their questions.
That's great. That's great.
I already have one episode that is with the applicant coordinator, the hiring agent in the Philadelphia division, answering questions about, what it takes to become an FBI agent. And I think that's like episode, I'm guessing 41 or 44. But I am going to have an episode that I post in February if the shutdown ends by then. But I will have another episode early 2019 where I have another FBI agent recruiter from the Philadelphia division on answering everyone's questions about what it takes to become a special agent. And I've been accepting those questions over this last month, and we'll answer them in February.
Okay. Well, we can put a link to that in the show notes if you like contact and see. All right. So I think that we've pretty much hit just about everything. So final question. What do you think in the podcasting industry or culture needs to be changed, fixed, addressed, if anything?
That is a good question.
Like, what makes you go, arg, when you think of podcasting?
Well, I do think, and this is going to be probably controversial.
That's okay.
I think podcasting started out as a medium of providing content to listeners. And now so many people are looking at it as a revenue generating. I think you could do both. But when I see on the different Facebook groups where people are saying, I'm going to launch my podcast next week and trying to figure out what Patreon give backs I should be posting. And I'm thinking you don't even have an audience yet. And you're trying to get money. I just think that aspect of it is really going to cause some issues for podcasting. I think the listeners are going to start getting turned off. I mean, if you're like me and like many people who listen to podcasts and you're listening to maybe 20, that's like the minimum of 20 different podcasts, every week. I mean, that's who I subscribe to. And every last one of them is constantly asking you, for money and to be supported. I think it's going to crash soon. There are some people who got in early and are going to be able to keep their supporters, but there's going to be other people coming up that it's not going to work out for them because it's gotten to be too much, too many people. Not everybody. There are some people that I'm definitely, I'm a She Podcast super team, and I make sure that I support that group. But I just think for people coming out with a new show and expecting to be supported right off, you've got to earn it. You've got to earn that.
I agree. And if you come into podcasting with the idea that you're going to make a fortune, you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. And if you listen to this podcast, you'll find that podcasters who have been podcasting for years still struggle with monetization. And B, it's an expensive hobby or can be an expensive hobby. And if you're going to make it into a business, then that makes it even more expensive to produce.
And I'm not saying don't do it. I mean, at this point, 3 years, and I have a really pretty good following. I'm very pleased. And that Lipson scale where they say, it's not my wording, but they say you're doing better than, well, I'm doing better than, 95% of the people podcasting from my numbers. And 3 years in, I am looking at possibly, getting an editor. Carrie, I'll definitely put you at the top of the list.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to keep forking out, money for that's expensive. It's well worth it.
Right. But it is expensive. It's not expensive. To have it done well. It's not cheap.
So I probably wouldn't do a Patreon, but I might do buy me a cup of coffee kind of thing. And, see if I have some people who are interested, not on a monthly basis. I don't need to be supported monthly. I got a really good retirement, but if anybody wanted to help me out with the editing, that's something I might consider. But I'm 3 years in. and, have thousands of people, I can ask, but I certainly would not have started off asking for that type of support. And so that's all I'm saying.
Right. And part of that is trust building. When you only have like 3 episodes, how do I know you're going to continue there's so much involved. And I do think that's a good point about every podcast asking for money or asking for support, because I kept track last year of how many content creators I supported and how many content creators our family supported. And it was like 15. And that's a lot, between YouTube and podcasts and even like Wikipedia. So there's a lot of free content out there to support, but I couldn't support everybody I wanted. I couldn't support everybody with a monthly donation, and I can only buy so many mattresses.
Right.
Or so much HelloFresh, or,
Right,
so there's only so much that one person can do. And that like monetization should not be the focus. And if it is, it's going to turn listeners off very quickly.
Yes, you said it so elegantly, what I was trying to say. That's the issue. I don't do ads. I'll never do ads. I don't mind ads. When I'm listening to somebody else's podcast, I don't mind ads. The only reason for me I wouldn't do them is because, again, I'm on a mission and I have a social impact, and I just don't want agents who are coming on my show to feel that I'm trying to make money off of their story. So I'm very clear about that. I actually put in my pitch letter that I make no direct income from my podcast, because I feel it's important for them to know I'm not trying to make money off of you.
Right.
I do hope that people listening would be interested in purchasing, one of my books. Absolutely. Also, one of my goals when I have a guest on that has a book, I hope that, I have over 45, close to 50 books on my FBI reading resource, which is, when you sign up for my monthly reader team email, then you can get access to this resource list. And it's a list of all the books from people who have been on my show. So it's books about the FBI that have actually been written by FBI agents. And so I do the same thing for them that I'm trying to do for myself, which is to, reach out to people interested in the FBI to say, hey, look, I got this other project here, this other product here that you might also be interested in.
And that sounds to me like it goes back to your podcast being of service,
yes,
to a community. And monetization, yes, being a part of that. But when its essence is in service, I think it builds more trust and more street cred in your community.
Yeah,
for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I like that. It really is a mission for me. And so maybe that's why I'm, feel so strongly about everyone trying to make money immediately off their podcast. What is your purpose, your focus? What are you trying to do for the listener? Get that straight first before you start asking them to do things for you.
Yeah. Well, the good news is, though, in that case, usually they're not successful. Listeners will do the least amount of work, and they don't respond to you if you don't do the work.
Right. But they still hear that ask,
yes.
And it still starts to get to them.
Yes. And it affects all of us.
Yes. So that's what I'm asking. Pay your dues before you expect someone to pay you.
And I think on that note, we will wrap this up. Thank you very much, Jerri, for joining me today and having this conversation and putting up with all the glitches and tech issues.
Thank you, Carrie. And can I put you down as one of my new internet friends?
You may. Yes.
There you go. I just wrote your name down on my list.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
If you want more information, you can either check out the show notes in your handy dandy podcast app or head over to yayapodcasting.com/JP, where you can find all the episodes and links to everything mentioned. That's YAYA podcasting. Hope you know how to spell that. .com/JP. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, it's at Carrie Eric, CarrieArick. If you have questions, comments, want to send hate mail, I love it. If you have suggestions for next season, are interested in being a guest, Carrie at yayapodcasting.com, CARRIE at YAYApodcasting.com. I'll leave you with the words of one of my favorite fictional characters, Miss Frizzle. It's time for you to go get messy and make mistakes. Bye.